hey guys, I'm just gonna jump right into it. Geometry sucks. Sine, cosine, tangent, finding angles, polygons? Ugh. Even though it's one of the worst things in existence, it also gives us the best shape. The cube. Rubik's cubes, ice cubes, dice, sugar cubes, Legos, and the best cube. The Gamecube. The Gamecube, aka my favorite game console of all time. Some of you may know it, some of you may not. Either way, I'm going to talk about it for the next 5 to 15 minutes. So let's start at the beginning. The Gamecube was named Project Dolphin during development, and development first started in 1998. Nintendo partnered with ArtX to make the chip on their next console that was codenamed the Flipper chip. Shaped like a shape, the Gamecube was compact and had proprietary discs that were smaller than DVDs and couldn't hold as much as DVDs. And they made these proprietary discs instead of DVDs to combat piracy. Oh no, somebody's gonna pirate my super popular and successful game! Yeah, hold your horses, Nintendo, just wait until emulation drops. On August 25th, 2000 in Japan, the console was officially announced as the Gamecube during a press conference. And at E3 2001, Nintendo revealed titles that would be releasing in the launch window of the console, including Super Smash Bros. Melee, Pikmin, which was a new IP, and Luigi's Mansion, which was a new IP. And there were a few other games like some Star Wars game nobody cares about. The Gamecube released in Japan on September 14th, 2001, and in North America on November 18th, 2001. The Gamecube launched with a bunch of random titles that gave it variety and quality, but the main important launch titles were Luigi's Mansion and Super Monkey Ball. So, after that short story of how the Gamecube came to be, how is it as a console? What makes it great? What makes it stand out? Well, it can't play League of Legends or Genshin Impact, so it's already doing pretty well for itself. What a great console! A sleek design, fantastic and memorable controllers, an amazing game library, better performance than the PS2, memory cards? This console is amazing, and the games on it are the main reason why this console is awesome. So let's take a look at some Gamecube games. So first, the case games come in are better than most. They made them very durable and lasting for some reason. Open up the top, then pop in your game of choice and play using the unique controller. The Gamecube controller is known by everybody, and if you can't recognize what this is, you're either really old or live under a rock. The Gamecube controller is one of the first comfortable controllers, and another one of Nintendo's game controllers to have some weird quality, just not as weird as having a third leg. The Gamecube controller has some odd button placement on the front, but it's actually really great. The most common button to use is big and right in the middle. The second is smaller and a little offset underneath and to the left. And the other two buttons sit offset near the upper right, which sounds weird but makes for a very comprehensive and comfortable button placement, except when you're playing 2D games. But lucky enough, there are only like 2 2D games on the Gamecube. So while the layout and look of this controller is quite weird, it's actually really good. So now that you've put in the game, turned on the system, grab the controller, and listen to me talk about the controller, it's finally time to play the game. And the most notable Gamecube game is Super Mario Tropical Edition. I really need to make better jokes. Super Mario Sunshine is my favorite Mario game, and is one of the best Gamecube games. With a tropical theme and Isle Delfino cleaning up a mess you didn't even make, this game is great. The platforming is really good with Flood Pack, and good without, with some levels that don't let you use it. However, this game does get criticized for cut content and poor game design in some levels. And while that's true, I still think it's one of the best Mario games, with some of the best bosses in platforming. Next, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, which is maybe my favorite Zelda game. I don't know, I still can't decide if I like old Zelda or new Zelda more. The Wind Waker is one of the best Zelda games, and maybe just one of the best games. This changed how new Zelda games would work with each new entry that isn't a sequel, having a different art style for each new game. Wind Waker also changes things up with there not being one small map packed with land, like most video game maps, but a big map that's mostly the ocean with some islands here and there with things to do. On top of that, Wind Waker has some of the best dungeons, items, and unique features. Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime is undoubtedly and undebatedly one of the best games of all time. The Metroid series finally got a 3D entry with this game, and it really surprised a lot of people because it was a first-person shooter, and people thought that wouldn't work with Metroid and that it wouldn't be good. They were wrong. Somehow, someway, Nintendo perfectly translated the 2D Metroid into a first-person shooter, and it made the game great. The controls were a bit weird for an FPS, but it worked well and gave us one of the best and most unique first-person shooters. Mario Kart Double Dash is one of the coolest Mario Karts and is the first Mario Kart game where you can hold 2 items at once. Double Dash is the first and only Mario Kart game where you have 2 characters in one cart and you switch between characters to switch between items. Double Dash also has some of the best tracks in all of Mario Kart, and is the first Mario Kart game to start getting the controls right. And lastly, Double Dash introduced Bomb on Blast and Shine Thief as new battle modes in Mario Kart. Pikmin, one of the most unique and fun game series of all time, and Miyamoto thought of this idea when he was gardening. Crash landing on an alien planet with 30 days left of life support with the only things to help you survive and fight on this planet are little carrot-looking plant-like creatures. The time crunch, collecting, and unique combat make this a strategic and fun and tense game that has lasted a lifetime and has created a fantastic game series. Super Smash Bros. Melee. People call this the best Super Smash game. Super Smash Bros. With some fast-paced combat and the coolest single-player adventure mode in all of Smash Bros. With levels that let you explore Nintendo's treasured worlds. Melee was also a big step for Smash with its graphics, roster of characters and stages, and it introduced another special attack when you move side to side and press B. Melee was, and still is, one of the best entries in the series. But you could still say that about all the other entries in the series. Now finally, an honorable mention, Wave Race Blue Storm, a fun single and multiplayer racing game that really nailed down the tropical theme that the Gamecube seemed to have. So now that I've talked about why the Gamecube is so great, you might be asking these other questions. How did it sell? What was the public's general opinion on it? What are memory cards like? Well, let's talk about the most memorable thing about the Gamecube. The memory cards. Back in the day, in between cartridge-based games and hard drives and consoles, game consoles had to use memory cards in order to save your progress into games, and you could get memory cards in different size capacities, and you could have 2 plugged into your console so you could copy or move something from one card to the other. And you could take out the memory card, bring it to another house, and bring it to somebody else's house that had the same console as you, bring your game, and you could be playing with your save data from the memory card you brought. Yippee! Yep, those were fun times when I had my memory cards on the PS2, and now with my Gamecube. But that's how it used to be, and that's what memory cards are. Now, the general opinion on the console, unsurprisingly, was overall very positive, but that's not without some criticisms. Even though it was lauded by some critics and enjoyed by all the people who had it, it was criticized for lacking features that other consoles had, the main thing being the proprietary discs. It was also criticized for its outward design. What? This is the most beautiful console I've ever laid my eyes on. Why on earth were people criticizing it? Now, after all that, after all the great games, great design, great accessories that I didn't mention like the Game Boy Link cable and Game Boy Player, and the great general reception, how did it sell? It sold 21.47 million units and is the 3rd worst selling console Nintendo has ever made, right behind the Wii U and way behind the Virtual Boy. Now that does sound bad, but the truth is it just couldn't commercially compete with the PlayStation 2. The PS2 had way more first-party and third-party games, used normal DVDs, and had a built-in DVD player. What? Yep, the GameCube and Xbox didn't sell as well purely because you didn't get a full DVD player right as you opened the box. It's pretty sad that the GameCube and Xbox didn't sell as well as the PS2, but it's all just because of that one killer feature that the PS2 had. Well, after that depressing statistic, it's time to talk about the stuff I absolutely forgot about. There's only 2 main accessories I need to talk about. The Game Boy Link cable lets you link up a Game Boy Advance to your GameCube, and you could do special things in certain games, and you could even use it as a controller in certain games. The Game Boy Player lets you play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games on your GameCube on your TV. There was also a broadband and modem adapter for the GameCube to play some games online, but it was only a few. Oh, and Nintendo was the first to make a true wireless controller. Yeah, no big deal. Well, after most likely wasting your time and patience, that's all there is to the GameCube. Overall, the GameCube is one of the best video game consoles of all time, with its amazing games and special feel. And even though it sort of failed, it will still be recognized as a great console. And even though it by default gets compared to the Wii U, which is like some dude being compared to a Genshin Impact fan, it will still be 20 times better than that dead thing.